In America, democracy has never been a given, and whatever has brought us closer to that goal has only happened thanks to the committed efforts of courageous Black activists and their allies. From the abolition struggle to the Voting Rights Act and beyond, people have put their lives on the line to make sure this country lives up to its promises. But since the inauguration of Trump 2.0, we've witnessed a staggering assault on those accomplishments and the entire infrastructure of civil rights. What began in Trump's first term as an attack on critical race theory has metastasized, predictably, into an assault on any attempt to promote diversity, equity, or inclusion in any American institution, public or private, school, government, or company. Within the first few days, the White House issued executive orders banning DEI in government, threatening to sue companies or colleges still practicing it, firing government workers who were merely believed to be associated with it, and promising to end funding for schools that teach students about systemic racism. Within weeks, the Department of Education had set up a snitch line for parents or students to report any efforts to discuss race or gender identity in schools, while the department's new director suggested schools teaching Black history courses might be defunded. Then, the Department of Defense announced it was banning the celebration of Black History Month and taking down posters of Martin Luther King at schools on military bases, while the National Security Agency even covered up pieces in one of their museums featuring people of color and women. Meanwhile, thousands of pages concerning race and gender equity began to disappear from government websites, and even when pages have remained up, unacceptable words have been excised. Words like dignity, or respect, or Black. But it's not just words being removed. It's people being terminated from their jobs, like Charles Q. Brown, chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And why? Not for misconduct or incompetence, but because he made a 4-minute video after the killing of George Floyd where he discussed his experience with racism as a Black man. Meanwhile, Elon Musk has been encouraging the president to consider pardoning Derek Chauvin, the officer who murdered George Floyd, for the federal crimes for which he was convicted, and convincing him to create a special program to expedite U.S. citizenship for white South Africans still upset about the fall of apartheid. Of course, as all this is happening, the president continues to blame people of color and women for virtually anything that goes wrong in America. From aviation tragedies to the Los Angeles area wildfires, the anti-Blackness at the heart of all of this seems hard to deny. Or is it? Because sadly, the only thing Democrats seem to regret about their 2024 presidential campaign is the rare occasion when they spoke out against racism.
I think I would have taken back getting myself sucked into the conversation around what was happening in Springfield, Ohio. Every time I was saying that, we were talking about Springfield, Ohio and immigration. We weren't talking about other things that mattered to people.
Indeed, the Democrats want to talk about everything but racism in their response to Trump, and many have gone on record blaming identity politics or wokeness for their party's loss. And so Democrats talk about Elon and the broligarchs, the disrespect for the separation of powers, and the threat that the president may disregard the courts if they cross him. But as for the white male rage driving so much of this chaos, almost nothing. And where does this complicity and silence lead us? To a society where white supremacy is normalized. Already we can see this happening. In 2017, President Trump was forced to at least fake concern about the Nazi march in Charlottesville. And when he suggested that there were good people on both sides there, he faced massive pushback. But now, overt racists whose views mirror those of the Nazis in Charlottesville are being given positions in the administration. Like Darren Beatty, the Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy, who said as recently as last October that competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work. Far from an academic matter, all this racial hostility has life or death consequences. By banning government research related to racial equity, the administration would set back important work on reducing disparities in healthcare outcomes. Already, hundreds of civil servants working on health equity have been terminated, harming not only the families of those fired, but the important work that they've been doing for years. Likewise, by terminating all government employees working on environmental justice to ensure that communities of color are not disproportionately harmed by pollutants, the administration will guarantee the poisoning of thousands of people in places like Cancer Alley in Louisiana. The perilous descent of our democracy requires us to call a thing what it is. Simply put, racism is being used to unravel the last 70 years of progress we have made in creating a more equitable society. And being afraid to name this, or suggesting that we should blame those who are calling it out rather than those who are weaponizing it, will only hasten the destruction. We cannot build a progressive, multiracial democracy by leaving racial justice by the wayside. We have to fight like all of our lives depend on it, because they do.